be somebody. You never know when you gonna need somebody. Hello somebody. Yeah,
hello somebody. It's your boy Marlon, Big Favorite. Welcome back to another edition of Inside the Trenches podcast. And I have a special treat for y'all today. That's right, especially for all my Who-Dats out there. I mean, it's been a rough year for the Saints and a couple of questions that needs to be answered. So I brought my good buddy on, beat writer, owner, operator of neworleans.football, my man Nick Underhill. Nick, thank you for coming on Inside the Trenches podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
Y'all make sure y'all follow him on Twitter, Nick_Underhill. So Nick, I've been knowing you now for a few years, going at a couple of Saints training camps. Never really got to know you personally in regards to like your family and friends and like your history. So tell me a little bit about Nick Underhill, man. Where did you go to school? Where you from? And how did you get into beat writing?
Yeah, so I'm from Pennsylvania, a town called Erie. It's just about an hour and a half west of Buffalo. And really, I got into this because it was kind of really the only thing I could do. I wasn't good at going to school. I didn't like sitting through history class, math class. I actually got kicked out for a year and had to go back. Yeah, it took me 5 years. So I was the truant kid who didn't show up. But there was a teacher there who just kind of saw something in me, Mrs. Yopes, and she always told me I was good at writing, and she gave me encouragement. And there were times like where I wouldn't go to school all day, and I had her last period, and I'd show up just for her class. She hooked me up with the newspaper, and I started writing little sports stories for them, doing some freelance work in that. And it was something that I kind of grabbed onto a little bit, and I knew I was good at it. After high school, there's probably about 3 years where I was working construction, doing different stuff, just getting money kind of however I could. And it just got to a point where it was like, I can't do this anymore. So I went to college as a non-degree student. Thankfully, my dad worked on the maintenance staff at one of the colleges, so it was like 80% paid. So you got to pay cash. You can't get loans or nothing for that. So I started doing that, and then I started freelancing for different newspapers when like people would come through. We had an NBA D-League team. One of them, it was actually the Erie Bayhawks, which the Bensons bought a couple of years ago and moved to Alabama. But there was one team that came through, the Springfield Armor, and I covered them a few times. And then a couple months later, for baseball spring training, they covered the Red Sox too. And I saw an ad saying they needed someone down there. I called them up. I was like, hey, I'm going to be down there in Florida. Let me do this. They're like, yeah, that's cool. I flew myself down, stayed in the hotel, lost thousands of dollars on the deal, maxed out my credit cards. But in my mind, I was thinking, hey, if I do this, I can get some clips, and I'm going to get a job off of doing this. And knowing what I know now, that was incredibly stupid because things don't work like that. But I went down there, I did that, and then one of their guys left that was covering the Patriots. And they're like, hey, can you blog about this from your house in Pennsylvania, do all that? And I'm like, yeah, cool. But I got that hookup, so then I call the Patriots and I get credentials. And I'm like, hey, can I come cover the game? They gave me a credential. I drive 9 hours one way, 9 hours back. Lose money.
You're talking Erie, from Erie to Foxborough. That's a bad.
Yeah, it's 9 hours. It's a 9 hour ride. Yeah. So I go out there, I cover the games, and I did it. I drove to New York. They had a game early in New York that year, and then they played Pittsburgh, Cleveland. So those were close to me. And then about midway through the season, I'm like, hey, let me move out there and just cover every practice and everything. They let me move out. We had to live in Rhode Island because it was like way too much to live in Massachusetts. I made like $30,000 that year. Couldn't pay my taxes. Like I did this for like 2 years. Eventually they gave me a full-time job and I hooked on. But like it was, for me, it was just, I needed a door, and I was going to eat off this no matter what it took. And I just kind of kicked that door and kicked that door and kicked that door and eventually found my way in.
Now, I'm assuming you're in your early 20s, you move out to Rhode Island. I remember staying out in New England. You're right, it is a big difference. We used to get our hair cut out in Rhode Island, and it's small, right? Rhode Island, for our listeners, viewers, it's just it's a little small spot. A lot of just very diverse area, freezing cold, just clamchowder.com, right? That's all there is to eat out there. So you get your start there. You're writing, and for broadcasting, it has so many different vantage points. You have your beat writers, you have guys who might just do on-camera talent, you have podcasters like us, and you have different elements to it. From what I understand, at neworleans.football, you guys have the podcast, you have the website, and you also write articles for, I guess, for our younger audience. What's that process like for, to become a beat writer and have that consistency and the timing to drop? Like, what is that industry like for inspire writers.
Yeah, it's competitive. And, like, for me, like, I go out there and I know there's people that write better than me, but no one's going to outwork me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, no one's going to come in there and take what I got. I always kind of try to operate like there's someone coming behind me, and if I slow down, they're gonna catch me. Like, I know how I got my way in. Somewhere there's someone out there that's going to be willing to drive 9 hours to cover
That's
a
right.
game. And when I meet that dude, I'm going to be scared of him, and I'm never going to let him catch me. So I keep trying to operate like that. But it's really just about showing up, and it's a bunch of people being in the same room, seeing the same thing, and you got to come out of there trying to be a little bit smarter than everybody else, seeing something that nobody else saw, having the conversation that nobody had, just kind of bringing those pieces, because there's so many people that are just willing to write, oh, Drew Brees is talking today, I'm writing about Drew Brees. Well, while everybody's around Drew Brees, I'm trying to be over here talking to him and talking to him and talking to him. That's a diversion for me to find something that nobody else has. So it's just always trying to find a way to be a little bit more interesting, a little bit different, and try to look at things in a way that nobody else is.
That's true. Now, something that wasn't too interesting this season has been the Saints football team. It's been remnants of the early 90s, late 80s. Not the best season this year when you look at the black and gold. My question for you, and I know you follow the team even when you guys travel, you travel along with the team, with you guys' show. What was the main issues this year? It's a ton of them, right? But I guess to bullet point 3, what went wrong?
Everything.
Hello, somebody.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it's a few things. I think that they overestimated what they had in the building, and I agreed with the idea of continuity. Like, when they stuck with it, I was for it. I thought keeping DA was smart. I thought keeping Pete Carmichael was smart. I thought just kind of, these guys were going to be able to come together and preserve everything that they kind of had going on. I figured there'd be some step back, but then, you look at the stat last year where they had 45, 50 different guys start. It kind of felt like, all right, they'll get healthy. They'll lose a couple games maybe because of not having Sean, but the healthy players will kind of even it out, and they'll still be competitive. And I think they looked at that the same way. But I think somewhere within that, they lost their direction. Everything they were saying early in the offseason was that we're going to take a step back. We're going to be realistic about who we are and what we're going to do. And for the whole offseason, they operated like that for a while. Like, it was like, are they going to do anything? Are they going to sign anyone? And they didn't. And then they get in this pursuit of Deshaun Watson, and it's like they kind of lost their minds there. And they got the idea of like, oh, if we get these couple pieces, we can be, back in the deep postseason run. So they miss out on him, and they keep going all in. They make the trade in the draft for the second draft pick without even a target. It was just, we want 2 picks. It wasn't like we're going to draft these guys. They made the trade before the draft. So it was whoever was going to be there. And look, Chris Olave is a great player. Trevor Penning might be, but there was nobody in that room saying, all right, if A, B, and C goes wrong, maybe we won't be that good. It was kind of like, oh, everything's going to work out, and we're going to be good, and everything's going to be perfect, and we're going to be in the postseason. We're going to be picking late in the draft, so it won't matter. Well, they're in this point now where you should be looking at, should we tank? Should we try to work up to the number 2 pick?
That's right.
So they don't even have those options on the table. So that went wrong. And then the same mentality. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think being out there was stuff we saw that kind of was like, all right, this could be a problem for a new head coach. The moment for me where I kind of looked at it and I was like, all right, something's got to happen here, is he missed a practice, and DA got asked about it, and he's like, oh, he had cramps. And, that's just kind of like coaches say that. It's like, it's not serious, and they don't want to go into detail. Oh, he had cramps. CJ starts tweeting that night, oh, I'm from Florida, I don't have no cramps, this is BS. They're trying to say this and that about me. And then the next day of practice, they got that trailer there where, it's cooled off. It's like a walk-in cooler, basically, like a grocery store. He goes into this trailer like 11 times in the same practice, kind of like a passive-aggressive, like, oh, all right, you're saying I got cramps, well, I'll show you. And, so it was kind of like he was challenging the new head coach. Sean, I think, would have got that in check. He would say, hey, this isn't going to happen. But they kind of saw DA's authority being challenged, traded him. Same thought, though. Oh, we're a good team. We got this depth. We got Justin Evans. Everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be good. And then, obviously, it wasn't. And they miss him. So, really, I think it's not even 3 things. It's just that one mentality, and then it's a bunch of things stemming off it where no one in the room was like, man, things could go sideways here. Like, what if Jameis Winston gets hurt and doesn't lead the team? What if we have to start Andy Dalton? What if Chris Harris ends up being our slot cornerback? There's nothing really in the thought process of like, maybe this won't work. And I think maybe just having that voice in their head would have just caused them to be a little bit more cautious with some of the stuff they did, they wouldn't be in this huge hole they're in right now.
I agree with you on that. Y'all just tuning in to Inside the Trenches podcast. I have Nick Underhill, beat writer for neworleans.football. Y'all check out their website. Check them out on Twitter as well. Great content. You love the Saints. This is the guy. You won't miss it at all. Him and my other buddy, we'll get into their deal in a minute, Mike Triplett. But I agree with you on the deal with just nip it in the bud. It's this back and forth thing on the social media and just this discomfort with your coach. This is someone, obviously, they drafted CJ into that organization. He's been in numerous of meetings with him. We know that CJ has this outgoing, funny personality, and I can relate to that. I know when I was on the team, they wasn't too favorable about those type of personalities, so I understand that. But at the same time, you have to win games. You're a first-time head coach. This is probably one of the better defensive players on your team. Yep. He makes the difference. He brings the noise. I think it was a rush move. I think between his agent and the organization, they could have figured something out. I do know that he wanted money, and it was time to get to that point. But it's just stuff like that, that, how you say, you hit one domino, the rest just fall, and the whole project you work on fall. I kind of felt like that's how the season started because, to your point, in the preseason, we're looking at this team, and we see Tyrann Mathieu on the team. We see that we have eventually we brought in May from the Jets. Cam comes back. We're expecting to have a healthy Michael Thomas. It's a lot of this high-end a receiver that comes in and Chris and really shows us this. It kind of reminded me of the Philadelphia Eagle team I was on in 2011. I was on it for a short stint.
Is that the dream team?
It was the dream team.
Yeah, all right.
We had Nnamdi Asomugha on that team. We had Michael Vick, Vince Young. That was LaShawn McCoy's rookie year. We had Ronnie Brown. It was just the D-line had Trent Cole and Jason Babin. It was just loaded with talent. Sante Samuel was on that team, but it was the clash of personalities. It was just bringing in all these superstars who were good on other teams, not saying that they're going to gel with this one. When we went to the Super Bowl with the Saints, I got there in the playoffs. But what I noticed about that time frame, Nick, was everybody got along. It was a happy environment. It wasn't a lot of big names on defense. It wasn't a whole lot of big names on offense. This was like Drew Brees' first 3 years on the team, so he started to transition into a superstar quarterback. Probably one of the bigger superstars on that team was Reggie Bush because of what he did in college, and he was a first-round draft pick to come in. So, but he was still young in his rookie contract. I think that worked because you had the great combination of rookies and veterans on that team. That's what I saw. I was only on the team for 4 weeks, but in the playoffs. But that's something I noticed versus the other 4 teams I was on my rookie year before I got cut. Seattle Seahawks, Richard Sherman and all those guys' first contract. The Legion of Boom, that whole deal. Again, I thought that was a good combination of veterans and young guys. So I think if you look back at the preseason and what the Saints are now at the tail end of the season, you have to say that.
Yeah, look, I think one of the things, too, that we should point out is they've drafted and developed safeties probably better than any position on their team. Marcus Williams, Von Bell, CJ, Malcolm Jenkins was one. Kenny Vaccaro was solid for a while. Going out and just replacing the whole core with 2 veterans you got to pay is something else that I think was another mistake they made. Now, I think Tyrann's playing better. I think we see May settling in a little bit more. I think it's been hard for him with just the injuries and guys moving in and out and figuring out, how much help one guy needs, where I can shade, where I can take my chances and all that. And as they get healthy and settle in, I think that'll become easier for them. But that was a spot, too, where they didn't need to be as aggressive as they were. And I think letting Marcus Williams go was another huge mistake. If you have him and you have CJ, and look, the pass defense has been okay, but I think you just took too much DNA out of that defense, and I think you're kind of seeing that. And I think they miss CJ, too, in their run defense. He was a good run blitzer, and they don't really have that player right now. And outside zone runs, they're allowing 4.8 yards per carry, where previously they were at 3.7. It's just kind of some of this stuff. I think little things, bit by bit, you deteriorate that culture, the DNA of the defense, and they were supposed to rely on it to cover up for this, somewhat subpar offense. And they've gotten better the last few weeks, but I think just overall throughout the whole season, some of that stuff can just be traced back to that.
That makes a lot of sense. And moving on now for the Saints, you're in a situation you don't have a first-round draft pick. You have to figure that out, and you have to build a team. Is it some type of way they can get a first-round draft pick? And my second piece to that question would be, what areas that they need to focus on? I know in the draft they always show like 3 areas of needs. What are your 3 areas of needs for the Saints?
Yeah, to get the pick, I think you got to hope and pray that something happens with Sean Payton. And I think the best way of getting that pick is if he goes to a team that already has an established quarterback in place, because they'll be more likely to say, okay, we got Justin Herbert. We can take a step back in the draft. We don't have this huge need and, throw that pick over there. They might make the playoffs, though, so I don't know if they're on the table.
Yeah.
Arizona's another one that is a possibility. I've heard that a few times. One of the ideas is that Sean and Jeff Ireland will be a package together to go somewhere. So maybe if you're getting the coach and the GM and you're looking at it like, okay, we got this great scout and he can fix all this stuff, maybe that drives the price up a little bit too. For the Saints, I mean, number one, quarterback, you got to figure that out. I don't know, if that's going to happen this year. It might be another down year, but I think they need interior defensive line. That's been a huge issue for them. Their run defense is really, really bad this year, and I think a lot of that's due to not having that. Onyemata hasn't been the same player since he got suspended, so that's a huge need for him. Defensive end might be a massive need. I don't know if you invest in Marcus Davenport after a half a sack season. His inconsistency kind of makes him really scary, and where they're at with the cap, you can't take chances and miss. Like, when they spend money because of how they operate on the cap, a miss is so damaging for them. So if they're spending there, they got to hit. Last one, I think wide receiver. I think you still need another one. They got to figure that out. Chris Olave is obviously a top-tier player. I like a lot of what Rashid Shaheed's done, but I think Mike Thomas is probably more likely than not out of here. I don't think you can pay him what he's due. And if you approach him and, kind of say, hey, take a pay cut, then he's going to look at his options and say, well, wait, do I want to come back and play with Andy Dalton, or do I want to go somewhere and rehabilitate my career with, a more established quarterback that can help me get my numbers? I think if push comes to shove, he's probably out of here. So those would be the big ones for me. But look, there's a lot of spots. They need a running back. Alvin's going to be suspended next year probably, and Mark Ingram's probably out of here. So there are a lot of areas of need on this team right now.
Yes, they do. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching Inside the Trenches podcast. Here's a few words from our sponsors. Are you a student athlete looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than Conquer Sports Pros. That's right, Conquer Sports Pros. Our team of experts will get you guys on the right path to your student athlete journey in life. That's right, we have every position in football you need, and we also help out with other sports. At Conquer Sports Pros, you have everything from a list of consultation, training, and also media training. Yeah, that's right. When you take your career to the next level, play college, and hopefully pro, you'll get lots of interviews. Call Conquer Sports Pros today. You can reach them at 504-319-6672 or visit marlonfavorite.com for more information. Hello, somebody.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with neworleans.football.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. neworleanstalknetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
Have you been experiencing occasional neck pain or any joint to say that? Well, you visited the right podcast because I have the right group of folks for you. That's right. Visit the Sante Rejuvenation Center, Wellness Center, right there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They have everything you need over there for full body wellness. Visit their website today, www.santerejuvenationclinic.com. They'll get you good and ready to go. Contact Miss Kathy today, 225-335-224. And let them know that you heard about them right here on Inside the Trenches podcast. Hello, somebody.
Hello. Hello, somebody. Yeah, I'ma move my body. Yeah, I'ma be somebody. You never know.
Welcome back to Inside the Trenches. Joining me here is Nick Underhill, writer at neworleans.football.com. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show once again. We're talking about the Saints, and we're looking at some possible scenarios and areas of need. But looking at the team this year, one person that really stood out to me in a negative way was Alvin Kamara. And it's not so much about his leadership on the team and the things that he does from a veteran standpoint. It's just that since he's entered the league, he's been consistent at what he's been doing. I'm talking about even on a down year. I can remember a game where he had 6 touchdowns in one game. He don't have 6 touchdowns on the year. How much of that, in your opinion, from your observation, is that on Alvin? Is it the scheme? Is it the injuries on the offensive line? What do you think went wrong with Alvin Kamara this football season?
Well, first, one of the things that I think has hurt him a lot this year is his blitz pickup hasn't been as good as it's been in the past, and that's led them to taking him off the field on some third downs, and that's a down where he should be dominating on. But if you're letting that guy come through and hit your quarterback, there comes a point where you got to look somewhere else for help. So I think that's hurt him a little bit. But I also think it's scheme and some of the stuff that they're doing. They've been a team that's been so good on screens forever, dating back to the Pierre Thomas days. 2017 was their most productive year on that play. This year, just strictly coming out of the backfield, they've thrown 5 screens to running backs. One of them was a 40-yard game by Alvin, but they just don't go back to it. And that's some of the stuff that's happening on offense that's so mystifying. And I think as people looking a little bit crazy at Pete Carmichael, what's the deal here? Right. This is your best player. Just get him the ball in space, let him make someone miss, and off you go. And then the other thing, the touchdowns from the opponent's 10-yard line in, he's had 6 touches the whole entire season. 1 passing play, 5 runs. They aren't getting him the ball down there. Coming into this year on those plays, 33% of his touches resulted in touchdowns. So why are you not giving him the ball in the areas where he's been so successful in previous seasons? Now I know some of that's, a little bit of, okay, there's more attention on Mike Thomas down here, so maybe it opens up something for Alvin out here. But just scheme something up and get him the ball. Give the best player on your team a chance to score touchdowns. I don't think they've done a good enough job of that. But I do think, again, some of that's a little bit self-inflicted by Alvin, maybe having some of these mental miscues, and there's maybe a lack of trust. But you got to figure that out and find a way to get the ball in his hands.
It's something, and I'll stay on the offensive side of the ball. We saw it with Alvin, and then Taysom Hill. So this year I noticed when Taysom had over 50 yards a carry, they won those games. What was that? Why not? I mean, I understand 2 quarterback systems aren't always successful, but if this is working, why break it? Why, stop it? And you look at some of the mistakes that was made, interceptions. I get it. You don't want to run it every play because they'll just load the box up. So you want to scheme it out right. But why we didn't see more of Taysom Hill this season?
It's another thing. And then every time we ask Pete Carmichael about it, he says, I got to do a better job of getting him the ball. Well, just get him the ball. Just call these plays and get him the ball. It's one of the things he said is we get behind. Well, use him to get a lead. Use him earlier in the game. Get him out there, have him make plays. He's dynamic. And, I think when Drew was on the team, you had to have that balance. At a certain point, it didn't make sense to take the ball out of Drew Brees' hands. Yeah. Taking the ball out of Andy Dalton's hands, no disrespect intended, why not? Give the ball to Taysom. I would, every time he carries it, it's like handing it off to a running back. I just don't see why it's so overly complicated. Just get him in there, get him the ball, let him make plays, and this is what should be the identity of your team. I think one of the things they've done this year is they've really struggled to kind of figure out who they want to be on offense. And sometimes it kind of feels like they're just calling plays instead of, painting the picture. Like Sean was always painting the picture, and you'd see him do something. And remember 2 weeks ago how he set something up with a certain look, and he'd run that look, and then do something different off it. You don't see this kind of story building throughout the season. It's just kind of we're going to try this, we're going to try that. And it's hopefully everything comes together. Against Atlanta, I thought they called 12 good plays to start the game, and then it was just kind of nothing got going after that. Yeah. So once they run out of their script and they're kind of, calling plays off the sheet, I don't think it's coming together like it used to.
You noticed when, even on a down year with the Saints, the numbers were still there on offense. And to see a coach like Coach Pete being a Coach Sean offense for so long, we saw with Joe Brady at LSU when he went there, how that Saints offense really benefited him. We see the same thing with Coach Carter. He's actually there now, was on that staff, being able to keep that offense for LSU electrifying. when you look at the Saints offense this year, and I had Alvin on my fantasy football team, I was so upset because I'm like, okay, whatever. That was in fantasy football just kind of highlights those things, just showing you the stats and what's going on and why this isn't happening. And you look at how mediocre Andy Dalton was this year. Now, his leadership did matter. I won't say that, his double-digit years in the NFL that didn't help the team in that deal, but it's like forcing the ball to Chris Olave a lot this year. I mean, I like the fact that they found Jawan Johnson, especially on the first downs and in the red zone. I thought that was remnants of what Sean did in his time here. But that really surprised me this year with Coach Pete Michael. Jameis Winston, old famous Jameis. To me, he was one of the highlights in training camp in terms of his attitude and just the openness he brought to us in the media world, right, just when he came to the podium. And I felt like, yes, he's made some bad decisions at quarterback, but I feel like Alvin would have benefited more if Jameis started. I felt like when he was in control and healthy, and I know that matters, and I want to get to that with you, why not go back to Jameis? I mean, I get it if Alvin was doing Andy Dalton was doing Teddy Bridgewater type things, then I can see, okay. Why not go Jameis?
I don't understand it at this point, too. I get if you liked Andy Dalton better and you thought he gave you a better chance to win, fine. But they're at a point now where Jameis is the only quarterback under contract for next year. And Putnam's going to cost you a lot of money. And I kind of feel like that relationship's reached a point where both sides are kind of telling you, all right, I'm done with this. I don't think we see him again. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think you got to find out what he can do. He was solid last year. Look, his numbers were amazing when you kind of like break them down efficiency-wise. I think some of the stuff on film, when you kind of go back and watch, maybe wasn't as good as the numbers, but he didn't have anyone to throw the ball to. Like, his top receivers now are healthy and actives this year. Like, Marquez Callaway was the number one guy last year. He's been a healthy scratch. So I want to see him throw the ball to Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, be out there with Alvin, have a healthy offensive line, kind of find out what he can do. Look, he's been in the league for, 8 years now. He's going to be 29, 30. Like, I don't think that there's a significant amount of upside there, but I think there's some. And I think you got to try to figure out what it is. And for this team right now that isn't doing a lot of stuff great on offense and they aren't sustaining drives, having Shaheed and Chris Olave, who both run 4-3, and Jameis with the cannon for an arm, kind of feels like there's an easy way to get like 2 or 3 plays a game. And if you get those 2 or 3, you might be able to win some of these games that you aren't winning. So it doesn't add up to me. I kind of feel like it's a little bit of mismanagement, just looking to the future. He's going to leave, and there's still going to be kind of like this, well, like, what could he have done with, like, real receivers in this offense? And we're never going to know.
And you know what I'm worried about with Jameis? You said something. He's under 30. People forget Drew Brees was 28 years old when he came to the Saints. He was an older guy already. Jameis is still young. He get healthy. I mean, once you start hitting those injuries, but if you get him a solid line. But something this year has been exposed throughout the NFL, and unfortunately we're seeing it here in New Orleans, is the coaching getting exposed. Baker Mayfield out there in Carolina. Now, he stunk it up a couple weeks ago for the Rams, but that first game he came back, you saw, you could call it a little luck of the draw, but a lot of that you could tell the coaching really played a role. So I think that was major. Speaking of coaching, Coach Dennis Allen, grade him. How did he do this year? If you were to give him a rough grade, A, he did an excellent job. Coach of the year, F, not so excellent job, and might be on a hot seat. What grade do you give him this year?
Well, look, I think the context of this is that he wasn't hired into like a normal situation where you're a head coach, you get hired, you're going to a team that's a bad team, you got time to turn it around, you establish your culture, you work it out, it builds up, and you aren't necessarily graded on the results. He was coming into a situation where for him to be considered a success, he had to get this team to the playoffs for where they were at. So that was his job. We're keeping this together, continuity, everything's here. You just lead this to the playoffs. He's failed at that. So that's the only grade I can kind of give him right now, because within the context of this season, they did not accomplish their goals. And now, I don't know, maybe they win their next 3 games and the Bucs collapse. But I doubt we're going to see them in the playoffs. They don't deserve to be there. And even if they do get there, I still think that you have failed at the task this season. So at the end of the year, I think they need to get together, and the conversation needs to be, all right, so we had this idea of continuity. Did it work? Obviously, it didn't. So now the next question is, now that we're entering somewhat of a rebuild, a reload, a retool, whatever it is he still the right person to lead that? And the answer could be yes. It might be keeping him, changing the offensive staff, seeing what happens. But I think there needs to be a serious conversation with the people in the front office about if he's the right guy for the new mission, because the old mission failed. It's over. That's done. The Sean Payton era, like the idea of the success there being held on to, it's not going to happen. So now it's a new story, and is he the right guy to be kind of the main character of that?
That's a good question, and the team ownership, front office have to really take a serious look at how they shape this, because you look at a division that's going to be wide open again next year. It's not. I don't think it's going to be one of those Cinderella stories like the NFC East this year, but I think it's a deal, and we own the South, right? The Saints the last 10 years have won more championships for the South. So as we wrap up the show, I got a few more questions for you. This one here is kind of a game, and the game of the game is we're going to play the game of likely or not likely.
All right, I got you.
It's going to deal with the Saints players and everything. So Jameis Winston is likely or not likely to be with the Saints next year?
I'd say not likely.
Not likely, and obviously we just talked about it, you think, because of chemistry.
It kind of feels like it's a little bit fractured there. I think Jameis is probably ready to move on, and I think they're telling you that, you know, if DA is still the coach, they're telling you they don't believe in him to be the starting quarterback. And if you're Jameis, you need to go somewhere and get that opportunity. So if I were him, look, he's under contract, so he only has so much say. But if I were him, I'd be trying to find my way out of it.
Trying to find your way out of it. Andy Dalton.
I could see them bringing him back. You know, if they're telling us right now that they like him and he might be the bridge quarterback, maybe you bring him back and draft someone. He's obviously, I don't think, an answer, but I think they kind of like what he's done. But I would look around and see if I could do a little bit better. But, you know, if you want to not spend a lot at that position, save your cap dollars, and kind of just roll back a little bit, it could make some sense to keep him around.
I do think that's an angle that they take with Andy, because it's one of the, you have to have a veteran there, even if you do find a quarterback in the second round, or if something happens, you get a first round pick, you have to have a veteran in there to kind of guide that guy away. Maybe do a little Fitz magic if you need it.
Yeah.
If your rookie's struggling. Michael Thomas, likely or not likely to be with the Saints next year?
I think not likely. They can't pay him what he's due, and it just kind of feels like that's ran its course. And I don't think this is his best option anymore. Like I said before, I think he should go out there and try to find a situation where he can be with a more settled offense and kind of know what the vision is going into it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that 2019 season and the year he had there, but the injuries, he needs somewhere to rehab and just start anew. I agree with you. I don't think he's here next year. It's not likely. P.J. Williams is likely or not likely to be here with the Saints next year?
It's a good question. I keep him around. I think he's a valuable player. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of injuries, but just his versatility, and I think he's kind of like a good, solid veteran presence, and I think they need some of those guys that kind of still have ties to, you know, the existing culture and know what it was in that locker room, and I think he's an important player just even in that regard. But on the field, I like him too.
He is, unless you're going to go a solid draft pick, or if somebody else pops up in free agency, but here's a guy that's been there for a while. Been a little inconsistent, but he made some big plays. And lastly, Mark Ingram, likely or not likely to be here with the Saints next year?
I'd say not likely. The contract's up. I guess they could bring him back as just kind of, you know, the veteran player, but I don't think he should be their number 2 option next year. I think they need to go younger. And no disrespect to Mark, I thought one of their biggest missteps was not bringing in a young player at that position to, you know, compete and eventually grow into that role. Because, look, Alvin's kind of getting to a point, too, where you're going to have to make decisions on his future, probably not next year, but the year after. I think you have to start looking at that. So having someone in the pipeline would make a lot of sense.
That makes sense, and I understand. I kind of wish that double trouble with him and Alvin Kamara a few years ago could have stayed together and they could have developed a little chemistry to keep going. But, yeah, it's rough. You got to go younger. Look over there at Dallas. You have Ezekiel, kind of, but you have Tony Pollard is, you know, handling his business. So, I like it. Good job, man. Likely, I thank you. If I was a teacher, I'll give you an A on that one, because that's probably going to be about at least 90 to 100% right. Y'all tuning in to Inside the Trenches podcast. My guest is Nick Underhill. Y'all follow him on Twitter at Nick_Underhill. Great content on the Saints. If you want to know about the black and gold, and just all kind of other things as well. Nick's your guy. Nick, before we let you go, talk to us about New Orleans, neworleans.football. Y'all have y'all's Twitter, y'all's website. What could our folks go and when they go on there? What could they expect?
We try to take a more analytical approach and kind of tell you not just what's happening, but why it's happening and what it means. And we try to, just get a little bit deeper into the numbers and try to be the people that can tell you that they only ran 5 screens out of the backfield all year to running backs. That's the stuff we do. So if you like the details and why stuff's happening, hopefully we're the place for you.
Definitely. Well, y'all make sure y'all go to, y'all can check them out. On Twitter, it's also New Orleans Football Network.
NOF Network.
NOF Network.
Yep.
NOF Network. Y'all check it out. Nick Underhill, y'all check him out. Go to their website. It's a good guy. Y'all can expect my man to come back on the show next year, hopefully talking some good stuff about the Saints, right? Well, Nick, thank you so much again, my brother. Y'all make sure you want to send a special shout out to all our sponsors on the show. Thank y'all for y'all's support. Thank God for allowing us to see another day. I want to thank our guest, Nick Underhill, for coming on the show. Y'all follow him again on Twitter at Nick_Underhill. And hey, man, we going to get this new year rolling up nice, baby. We want to finish it off smooth. And y'all just finished checking out Inside the Trenches podcast, baby. See y'all soon. Hello, somebody.
Hello. Hello, somebody. Yeah, I'ma move my body. Yeah, I'ma be somebody. You never know when you gonna need somebody. Hello. Hello, somebody. Yeah, I'ma move my body.
Hello, somebody. It's your boy Marlon, Big Favorite, and Inside the Trenches podcast is back, baby. We back. Y'all make sure y'all check us out for excellent season, and you can check us out on neworleans.football. Y'all make sure y'all follow me at BigFave504. We back at it, baby. We in them trenches. Are you looking for your dream home? Well, if that's the case, you need to contact Joe Piccolo at Godwyn Reality, right here in New Orleans. Joe can put you in your dream home right away. Joe Piccolo and the folks over at Godwyn Realty put you in the house that you need. Even if you're looking to invest in some property, they'll do an excellent job with that as well. Contact Joe today at 504-251-8341. Again, that phone number is 504-251-8341. And also contact Joel at joel.godwynrealty.com. No need to dream anymore. Godwyn Realty will put you in the dream house of your reality. Hello, somebody.
Are you looking for a home to live stream your next event? Give us a call here at Bethesda Community Event Center, the only place on the Gulf Coast that can host and broadcast live your wedding reception, your baby shower, business seminar, and any other special event. Give us a call at 504-708-9454 for more details.
What's up, beautiful people? It's the host of Inside the Trenches, Marlon, Big Favorite, and I'm here to talk to you guys about Superior Benefit Solution. That's right, Superior Benefit Solution. At Superior Benefit Solution, Justin Manali and the team at Superior Benefit Solution will do the right job at getting you the insurance that you deserve and need. Their insurance policies range from accident coverage, life insurance, both whole life and term insurance. For more questions about Superior Benefit Solutions, contact Justin Manali at 504-307-8905. Again, that phone number is 504-307-8905. Superior Benefit Solution, the home for your insurance policies. Hello, somebody.